Or does?
Yeah, my friend that lives in Utah, she and her husband are here in Clovis for visiting Yellowstone. You got it figured out? At home, mom. I have boy and girl, and I'm like, good.
I didn't know if I was expecting her. Girl first. Yeah, but normally somebody else does.
My daughter has 3 girls,
I was just
and
thinking,
my
that's just
son-in-law's
your
like, no, we're done. I can't have a girl.
Trying. It's heading down.
Poor girls, the infant little girls. Sean, that's my son-in-law, goes, we're not having another girl.
Oh, look at. There's plugs in here. Which one has a plug in?
Maybe anytime these guys show up and I'm here before them, they're late. Because I'm always the last guy. Yeah, I'm never late, but I'm right at the minute. Yeah, so. Yeah. Plus, I'm the only one who went to work this morning and then came here. Yeah.
Okay, good morning and welcome to the meeting of the San Joaquin Valley Insurance Authority. I will call this to order and we will have a Pledge of Allegiance led by Supervisor Buddy Mendez.
Ready, salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, if we could have a roll call.
Randall,
Obviously.
Director Magsig,
Here.
Director Mendez, Director Macari,
Here.
Director Pacheco, Director Sheklian,
Here?
Director Vanderpool.
He will be here eventually. Okay, thank you. Our next item is approval of agenda. If there's no corrections or changes, I will entertain a motion. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we need to do a roll call, or can we just do a voice vote? Okay, so all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay. Our next item is public comment. This is a time that members of the public may comment on any item not appearing on the agenda. When that item comes up, we will open it for public comment also. So is there anybody here today that would like to speak for public comment? Not seeing anybody rushing to the podium. We will move on to our next item, which is an approval of the consent agenda item 18 through 19. If nobody wants to pull that, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Magsig, second by Mendez. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Okay. Moving right along, our first item is an information item, and that's an update from our auditor treasurer on cash flow projections.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm Matt Blanks. I'm going to be giving the cash flow update. Since our last meeting in February, cash has ranged from 27 million to 31 million. Our weekly average cost for our PPO, which is our weekly Anthem invoice that comes in, has been at 0.9 million. At the last meeting, it averaged at just over 1.14 million, so it's come down a little bit. And year to date, we've averaged 1.09 million for that cost. Next slide, please. So the last meeting, we increased our IBNR and our 3-month stabilization reserves. So now that total with the Gallagher settlement factored in gives us a total of $38,105,076. Cash at April 21st was at $28,914,720. So we're below our total amount by about 10 million. So we're kind of through the Gallagher settlement into the 3-month reserve. I project the cash flow to kind of continue along the same lines. And so at the end of fiscal year, June 30th, we're projected to be around 28 million. Any questions?
Yeah, some questions. So again, when you look at the cash position, and you take a look at current balance, so current balances add up to that 38,105 million, but the cash position's 28. And I assume the 28, you take the 7 out, but where is the additional roughly $3 million that is lacking? Is the current balance, is that like an actuarial balance that we have, which doesn't really tie with our true cash position, or what am I missing?
You know, I guess, so that 28 million is made up of what's in our investment pool and what's in our current bank accounts. Current bank accounts will range anywhere from typically 2 to 5 million. So the rest of that is all in that. And that 28 million does include, that 7 million did go into that investment pool. So we do have a shortfall there.
Understood, but again, the difference between 38 and 28 is roughly $9.2 million. So again, I'm looking for $2.9 million, which isn't tying together, because current balance I recognize is taking into consideration the 7, and if the 2.8 cash position balance is removing the 7 million, you're still short that 2.9. So again, that's where I'm confused a little bit. But the cash position is what we truly have in cash less the $7 million settlement, correct?
No, that's including the $7 million settlement.
Okay. So what am I missing? Where's the roughly $9.2 million that's the difference between the current balance and the cash position?
Oh, so I guess the current balance up there is what that's stating is what kind of our benchmarks that we've set for those reserves, what we should be at. It's, I guess, is that?
Got it. So if it's a benchmark, really it's not a balance. It's so, you know.
So yeah, I'm sorry, maybe it's just poor wording on on the presentation on the slide. So it's not the actual position, like, we don't have just, 9 million just kind of up and disappeared. That's more maybe where we should be at, where we should aim to be at.
Got it. All right, perfect. That is exactly what I was looking for.
Okay, okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Questions? Any public comment? All right.
Thank you.
All right, our next item is also an informational item, which is to receive an update on fiscal year 21-22 audited financial statements.
Good morning, members of the board. My name is Rochelle Garcia, and I work for Financial Reporting and Audit. As of right now, the trial balance for the SJVIA financial for 2022, the trial balance has been finalized, and that will be the basis for the financial statement. By next week, we will be able to present that to our auditors, to Price Page, and it usually takes about a month to a month and a half with the process. It just depends on what they find once we submit all the supporting documents. We're anticipating by the next board meeting that we will be able to present the financial statement, the finalized financial statement. As far as the quarterly report for 2023, we held off on presenting that just because that will be we want to make sure that the 2022 is clear and has been audited because that will be the basis for 2023. It carries over to 2023, so we'd rather present something accurate than present something timely, but then some false numbers in there. So currently that's where we stand right now, and I just asked the board if give us more patience as far as presenting the financial statement. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Questions? Yes.
Sorry, so again, I just want to make sure that we're clear on the numbers. So if, with the projections of where we stand with cash and our balances of what was just presented before, current cash position's 28 million plus or minus, or plus some change, but we're supposed to be at about 38 million when you factor in cash position and all the reserves. And so with us being off roughly $9.2 million, and if I heard that correctly, the $28 million position also includes the $7 million in Gallagher revenue. So that being the case, we have burned a tremendous amount of cash and reserves through claims this year. And if that is not brought, under control here quickly with rates needing to be adjusted, it will burn through all of our reserves and cash at this rate within a matter of, maybe another 20 months if major steps aren't taken and continuous. We continue to see claims similar to what we've been receiving the last 10 months. Is that a fair assessment?
That's correct. I would say that the board may probably need to think about like methods or ways on how we can build that reserve back up. Just because based on the presentation that benchmark that we're talking about up on top, where it says yes, no, no, that means those two sources, we're not meeting those numbers that were the benchmark numbers.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, our next item is to receive consultants' medical, dental, and vision experience reports through February 2023. Warden.
Good morning, Warden Darm with Keenan. Wanted to go over the experience for the first 2 months. We actually, the self-funded plan built a surplus. So if we go to the consultants report, I'll kind of review everything there. Over the first 2 months, we see that the medical plan premiums outweighed the cost of the plan by approximately $2 million. Dental was about $125,000 for a total of just under $2.2 million that we were able to reserve. One of the things that I will caution the board is that keep in mind that in January, February, and also March, claims from Community Medical Center were being held, so they were not presented for payment. The total amount, and further on today, we'll go into discussions on the discounted arrangement that was reached. But we do expect it to have about a $2.3 million impact on the year, meaning that it's about $192,000 a month that the contract would have. So we anticipate just under $600,000 through March and just under 1.2 million through June. And those claims are being currently processed by Anthem as well too. And there'll be further discussion on other agenda items, but I wanted to bring that to your attention. Some of the other areas that have contributed to, over the first 2 months, we actually have arrived at a balance of, oops, of just under $2.6 million. The balance did not come from the self-funded program. It came from some of the reserving elements that we do, margin requirements on the medical plans. It came from the Kaiser margin that we apply, as well as the EPO parity margin that is applied, and reserving that it's applied as well too. In total, we're satisfied. We had a nice start to the year of accumulating this $2 million. If you look at it from the self-funded perspective, we're saying that for the first 2 months, it's probably overstated by about $400,000 just due to the CMC claims that we believe were incurred during that time. So we're off to a good start this year. Both counties were in the positive for both January and February, so there were no months where claims exceeded or total cost exceeded premium. On the year, we're looking to accumulate about $6.5 million in reserves. That's what's built into rates, prescription drug rebates, and Kaiser reserving as well too. And we are well on our way to that. We should have been at about $500,000, and we're at over $2 million, so we're off to a good start relative to that as well. On page 6.
Gordon, a quick question. I need
Yes.
to stop you. So, again, going back to the cash position and the, roughly $9.2 million cash burn, and then listening to some of the rosy figures that you're presenting right now, what's going on? Because at the end of the day, cash is what matters, and if what we had budgeted for, we're missing big time, then something is amiss.
Well,
and a question too that I have before you answer that one, you mentioned that the $2.3 million additional costs for the contract that was negotiated with Community. I was under the impression that was just for the claims they were holding. There was going to be an added cost of about $2.3 million, but what you're saying is a projected cost for
the year.
Now the year, is that year
That's
ending
2.3.
June 30th or year ending December?
Calendar year.
Calendar year, okay. And then if you can answer the first question about the $9.2 million cash.
I think one of the big areas of difference between on the cash flow projection as presented today versus the one in February is the IBNR reserve has been updated for what the board put in place. That IBNR went up about $1.5 million from the previous. That's your December 31st position, which was the update from the June 30th. So that had a big jump there. And then the other item was obviously the stabilization reserve, because that's set at 3 months of projected claims. And so whatever your claims is, we look at the year as it happened, and then we set the stabilization reserve. So that took about a $2 million hit. So just because our reserve levels needed to increase, the funding doesn't necessarily increase with it as well right away. So that's a portion of the explanation as to the differential between the two. I will say this, that our IBNR reserve is now, I believe, it's over $10 million. I'm having our actuarial department review that. In particular, we reserve the IBNR reserve plus the recommended 15% margin. 15% margin is, $1.5 million on 10 million. And do we really need that? So I've asked them to entertain some studies that they're doing for us right now to see in past years, what's the actual run out been based off of the number that they gave us? So basically a true up. Are we hitting our targets, or are we being very conservative in our projections? And I hope that by the time we come back for the next reserve level, which will be in August for a June 30th fiscal year end position, that we will have a number that we feel more confident in. The other area that I've challenged our actuaries on is smoothing out the effect of large claims. Unfortunately, there's this anomaly within the actuarial studies that they do, where if you have large claims that don't get paid for 6 months, and that 6 months happens to be right at the end of your study period, it basically projects an inflated number going forward. And we need to smooth that out because we know we're going to have large claims, but that we have them to the magnitude that gets inflated by their methodology is something that we need to have them address as well too. So there's two areas. I'm hoping to get that IBNR number down from where it is right now because I believe we're well overfunded for that, and I'd like to see a better number come out of there. And then the claims we're working on, we have various different cost control programs in place. A lot of it's also going to depend on the decisions that the board will eventually make on who our new provider is and so forth, and then we'll have to start working with them if there's a change. Otherwise, we'll continue working with the incumbent as well too, but that is yet to be determined. Does that help? Or?
That's helpful, at least for the $3.5 million, because the 1.5 is IBNR, 2 million is other reserves. So really, there's about another $5.5 million out there that we got to figure out.
Yeah, and so one of the other problems too is here I am reporting through February, and I can't report any closer than what I'm doing, but yet the auditor's office has the opportunity because they're seeing cash real time, and you saw the cash flow was through I think April 21st or something like that. Yep. So he's got almost 2 months ahead of me. So I'm like, am I looking at bad weather ahead or a storm up ahead of me? But we'll wait and see how March and how April play out. At our next board meeting in July, we will be reporting on data through May.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. Are you up again? Receive consultant's report on Empiric's plan 2022 pharmacy utilization.
I have Rob Welker here from our pharmacy unit.
Good morning. My name is Rob Welker. I'm with Keenan Pharmacy Services. Thanks for giving me just a few moments today. I'll be discussing item number 10, the pharmacy services for year-to-date 2022. So without further ado, we'll just jump right into slide number 2. What I did here is just an overview for when comparing 21 to 22. And I broke it down for Tulare and Fresno separately. Then as we go out throughout the deck, we'll combine them and separate them throughout just to kind of give a bigger picture overview of what's happening in each individual county. For Tulare, we did see an increase from 21 to 22 to 22% increase of planned costs this year. I'll break that down in just a few moments as to what was causing that. Fresno stayed pretty flat, slight increase of up to 5%, and then just total as SJVIA as a whole, we're looking at about a 12% increase of pharmacy spend from 21 to 22. What's really driving that is the specialty plan costs. Specialties increased significantly from 21 to 22 of about 30%. Towards the end of this presentation, I'll share with you what we're working on to help decrease that cost and help the plan out from a specialty controlled management, if you will. And off to the right, just a couple bar charts and a pie chart for you, just to kind of help you see visually the disparity between the two and kind of the trends over the last couple of years. Next slide is just the executive summary. Breaks it down a little bit more for you, really looking at just the per member per month cost off to the left. As you can see, the non-specialty, and throughout this particular slide, you'll see non-specialty stays pretty flat over the last 2 or 3 years, which is fantastic. Again, we look at this trend here, is the first thing we'll notice is specialty cost continues to increase. Off to the right, again, 20 through 2022, so we're looking at about 3 years there. Cost per non-specialty claim is about $70. As you can see throughout the years, it's actually gone down, gone up a little bit, but for the most part, it stays flat. The specialty claims adjudicated from 20 to 2022 is we're seeing that increase throughout the book for the last 3 years. If you can see it down in the very bottom right-hand corner there, I know it's small font, but the driver of specialty spend in 2023 is couple things. Really, it's Humira pen. We see that increased quite a bit over 2022. And then most importantly, in particular for Fresno, is that we did see a Pivelli claim move over. It was there in late 2021, but it was minimal fills. We saw that fill increase in 2022, roughly $480,000 alone to the plan. One member, 13 fills, $480,000. Increase in the plan for Fresno. Okay. Slide number 4, just breaking down just the different plan spend and the drivers for you. So this is everything as a whole. Just to kind of give you an idea is where the funds are being allocated from an indication standpoint. Anti-diabetics, dermatologicals, those are the main hitters. And that's been pretty consistent throughout the years. And it's also very in line with the Empiric's PBM book of business. Humira, Ozempic, Trulicity make up 15% of the plan's overall plan cost. So it's a small subset of claims, if you will, but a large cost to the plan. All right, so let's talk just specifically about specialty medications on slide number 5. Anti-inflammatories are pain medications, biggest driver. Then we've got just a few other ones listed there for you. Off to the right, I think that pie chart is powerful when you really want to take a step back and look at what is occurring from a financial plan cost for pharmacies. We're getting to the point where it's 50-50, where specialty medications, such a small subset of medications, there's not nearly as many being filled as a non-specialty, but we're almost at a 50-50 point where the costs are even on both sides. Humira pen, Dupixent, Stelara, that Empaveli drug is a new hit here as opposed to last year. We didn't see that on our top few, and then Tremfya. Those are our big specialty medications that are processing throughout 2022. And then one last just executive summary, breaking down Tulare versus Fresno. This is per member per month. You can see again, it's consistent from a non-specialty standpoint in both books. But we really saw the Tulare County increase on specialty again instead of Empaveli fills throughout the year. And just off to the right, just to point out, it's January through September. When I visit again in the next, I think it's July, I'll have an updated version of throughout 2022. We're just at that 5 to 6 month marker from a clinical savings. And really all that is it's Empiric's clinical model, what that saved the plan from a PA standpoint, step therapy standpoint. So those are the dollars that were saved by going through the clinical review. Slide number 7, strictly discussing the rebates, just a kind of a snapshot in time. 2018, you can see over time, the rebates have increased significantly, which is a good and bad thing, right? It's great that we're getting more dollars. We know where those dollars are coming from. Specialty medications are expensive, but those are also the ones that have the higher dollar amounts from a rebate standpoint. And last but not least, kind of is what I mentioned at the beginning, is let's talk just briefly what we're doing to address the specialty spend. We recently, as of 5 days ago, implemented the VCAP program. It's the variable copay assistance program that we had been discussing for I think 7 or 8 months, and we are live as of 5/1. Members have been communicated to. We are starting to work with those members to get them enrolled in that manufacturer assistance program, to where we can pull those manufacturer dollars into the plan, but also allow for offset of copays for the particular members. So that, coupled with the rigorous clinical review that Empirix does on the front end, ensuring that all specialty medications are reviewed and PA'd prior to dispensing, we feel comfortable and confident over the next year we'll start to see some improvement on the specialty front.
Chair, I've got a question.
Yes.
If you go back to the last slide, just looking at rebates, so from 2021 to 2022, some of the increase in rebates that you're showing is just due to utilization, more utilization. A question I have actually goes back about a year ago when we had the RFP and we had different entities provide rebate analysis based upon scripts from, I think, 2021. There was one entity that indicated they could do over $7 million in rebates. And we're still, ImperiRx for 2022 is being estimated that we'll be just getting close to $3 million. Is the reason that you're not able to have larger rebates, is it because ImperiRx is kind of more of a boutique, a boutique prescription plan, or what's the discrepancy there?
Yeah, Director Max, that's a good question. So it's a couple things. One is absolutely, it is more of a boutique from a clinical management standpoint. So they manage the clinical component of it. There's no additional charges for the clinical management. But the secondary piece of it is over time, based on the contracts that we had in place, is SJVIA was receiving 80% of the rebates. The new negotiated contract that we just completed, it's 100% of the rebates. So we expect over the next 3 years within that agreement of a $5 million increase for the overall rebates. So it gets us closer to that number.
Why were we only getting 80% before?
So to your point earlier, it's that word boutique, but they manage the clinical titers, and you're not paying for those services. So it's not an offset. That's probably not the appropriate word, but it's utilizing funds that were for the rebates. As you weren't paying, like most PBMs, you'll pay for the clinical management component of it. It's essentially a trade-off, but it's within that contract. Moving to the new contract, we're at 100% of all rebates.
Because as I understand it, we pay a fee to ImperiRx per employee for them to manage the plan. So to me, it's kind of confusing that if I'm understanding you right, that ImperiRx was getting a portion of that rebate in addition to the per employee per month cost. So maybe is that what you're saying? How we've operated in the past?
To an extent, right? The offset language is not appropriate. It's just more so of the bigger picture of the overall pharmacy plan, right? As in each individual PBM has their own particular setups. Whether you go with a different PBM where you have costs associated with the clinical management piece of it, it's more of the net numbered where it ultimately shakes out. I don't want to say the 20% rebates that was being retained is necessarily for the clinical management part of it. Whereas a different PBM has 100%, but you're going to pay that 20% gap, if you will. So that funds that they're retaining from a rebate, it's just another way of doing it.
And the reason I'm pressing you on this is
absolutely.
I don't remember in the contract, that being in the current contract with ImperiRx, with that being stated that they would share in a rebate portion. And if it was there and I missed it, so be it. I thought that we were just paying ImperiRx a flat rate per employee per month. But what I'm hearing you say is they're actually taking right now about 20% of the rebate.
They were.
That.
Correct. Not the new contract. The new contract's 100% rebates.
Okay.
Director Magzik, was that helpful? Did that make sense? Okay, perfect.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is an update on the direct contract with Community Medical Center and the ratify SJVIA management execution.
Okay, Hollis McGill, SJVIA Assistant Manager. Item 11, we're asking you to ratify the direct contract with CMC. As you remember, Anthem fell out of contract with CMC, so the SJVIA, County of Fresno and County of Tulare, executed a direct contract, and so that CMC could be in network. It was retro to January, and it was signed at the end of March, so we're asking you to ratify it.
Great. Do I have any questions regarding that? Okay, then I'll entertain a motion. Okay, we have a motion by Director Magsic, second by Director Mendez. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Abstain? Okay, motion passes. Our next item is to receive an update on the April 6, 2023 strategic planning meeting.
Borden Darn with Keenan again. On April 6th, we had our strategic planning meeting. In attendance, we had SJVI staff as well as the co-managers. We had both CAOs from both counties in attendance, as well as Director Maxick and Director Vanderpool were in attendance. Over that time, we did a review of the history of the SJVIA, reviewed the mission and vision statements. We went over the current financial position of the SJVIA and also did a retrospective look of from inception to current, how the two counties were doing as well. We addressed the issue of allocation of the $7 million settlement fund. And then we went over carrier and carrier performance. That led into a discussion on the CMC direct contracting, as well as where do we go from here. And it was determined to set up a subcommittee of a committee to look at the proposals that everyone had provided to us, or that the finalists had provided to us, and have them confirm and update their proposals. In addition to that, we went over medical and prescription drug performance on a utilization basis a little bit more. I had a deeper dive into wellness as well too. As you know, or as I've mentioned here before, financially, we do need to get our reserves up to so that they're completely sustaining the 3-month reserve and the IBNR. And in addition to that, we need to kind of help our membership become their healthiest self, so that we can really bend that curve on claims downward, because we're using less services and using more preventive services. So we had a good discussion there, and we also discussed growth of the SJVIA and came up with some topics there. And we have Supervisor Maxick here, and also from CAO Paul Nerlin. Either of you, if you would like to comment on the meeting that you attended.
Good morning. No, it was, thank you, Board, and it was good to be here, and for members of the SJVI Board. Having been here in 2009 when we formed the SJVI, when we talked about the history, we could go through the good times and the bad times. So we did have a good, healthy discussion of why are we doing this, you know, from a County of Fresno and County of Tulare standpoint. And I think we agreed that there's good reasons that by sharing the purchasing power through the SJVI, there's still benefits to Fresno and Tulare County to do this. But also, how can we work through those things moving forward? So the next item, we'll get into some of the parts of what we're recommending from the subcommittee that was formed on our health insurance renewal proposals for next meeting. We also, the CAO from Tulare County, Jason, and myself, were directed to work and look at the $7 million amount from the Gallagher settlement to come back to your board with a proposal as to how that would be equitably distributed within the SJVI for Fresno and Tulare County. And so we are working through that, but at the same time working on the next item which are the proposals that we'll be talking about for item number 13. So it was a good discussion. It was good for Jason and I to be there, to be re-engaged in that discussion, and I'll defer to Supervisor Magzig if you've got anything else to add.
Well, just we talked about mission, vision, value statements a little bit. Made some small tweaks to the mission statement, but overall it was a great discussion, and both Pete, myself, as well as staff there, we see great value in the SJVIA. We've learned a lot, and some of those lessons have been painful that we've learned together, but Pete, as well as myself, we've got full faith in the staff of Fresno County and Tulare County, and we believe it's in the best interest of the SJVIA to have, Jason, Lupe, Hollis, and Paul working together to figure out, as we move forward with providers, what's the best strategy, which is going to provide maximum savings and also allow for the greatest access to network too. So was pleased to represent the Fresno County side, and I know Pete was pleased to represent the Tulare County side. So thank you for trusting us.
That concludes my report.
All right, thank you for the update.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item is an action item, and that's to receive the Strategic Planning Review Panel update.
Good morning again, SJVI Board. Paul Nerlin, CAO from Fresno County. I am speaking on behalf of this committee, and again, that's Jason, Hollis, and Lupe. So we had a meeting, and at the direction of the subcommittee panel at the strategic planning meeting, we sat down and we wanted to see every single proposal, and in addition to the summary information that had been submitted by our consultant. And so we had a chance to look through everything, the raw data. And as we were doing that, we were reminded how much data is involved in this process. Some of the questions Supervisor Megzig was asking even today are the kind of things that come up. What assumptions are being made in the savings that may be portrayed? And so at the end of the day, we're looking at it with the following considerations that I'd like your board to consider. Number one, cost. And that cost was looking both at the administrative side and also at the discounts and the rebates that were available by each provider. And it was important to us in this group to talk about sustainability. We're not looking for a change that's buying the business, but then a few years later, the cost will be significantly higher. So that was the number one consideration. Number two was network quality, disruption, access in both Fresno and Tulare County. And so making sure that we are looking at our employees and realizing that it would minimize disruption and that the quality of the network is satisfactory. Number three, we looked at their capabilities and performance. What are they able to do, not just as a claims payer, but what value do they bring to the table? And then finally, a value proposition. What are they bringing to each county as a strategic partner? As we went through that, we realized we had many more questions than we were able to answer in the meeting that we had. We also realized that it was important to ensure that we are comparing an apples-to-apples comparison. And so to that end, our recommendation was having actual finalist presentations and interviews with the finalist candidates. So that, again, included Aetna, Anthem, Blue Shield, and HealthComp. United Healthcare declined to propose, but the rest did. That could take place in either a half day or a single day. I would suggest, if your board was willing to consider having the same subcommittee that participated in the strategic planning meeting. I know Pete's not here to object, but if your board's willing to consider that again, for continuity, I think it was helpful, but the goal would be a single meeting. We may have questions of the providers. The providers may also see the data as summarized by our consultant, and if they believe that the costs that presented, they have a question or comment, we all hear that at the same time. And then we come back. Our next board meeting here is July 21st, is that correct? So we'll have to move quickly to make sure we get this complete and moving. But that is what we propose, and I'll turn to Hollis and Lupe if I missed any key details.
We just want to make sure that the potential vendors all feel that they've had a fair chance to be heard, and so that's why we wanted to go down this route, so that was important to us.
Yes, Larry.
I just want to be sure that when we have this, that, and I understand we're in this together, but we're also very different between Fresno and Tulare counties on the amount of and type of providers that we have here. It's my understanding that, and I'm not going to mention any names, but some of these providers, or at least one that's on this list, would not do a proposal for Tulare County because they don't have a very strong network here. I don't know if that's totally accurate. That's just what I've been told in other discussions. So I want to make sure that when we do this, we have a strong focus on the network providing in Tulare County as well. So make sure that we're all covered the same.
As a board member, I want to share with you that the path forward, it needs to work for both of us. And a good proposal is not going to be one that benefits one county over another. So if you're open to still having Pete and I on this committee, what is going to be great, in my opinion, is you have equal representation from Tulare County and Fresno County, and we're going to have to come to consensus. And if we can't come to consensus, we'll have to report back to you on that as well. But we're going to have to come to consensus as a group, and our goal is to make sure that disruption is at the top of the list. We don't want disruption, and so that's something we'll be focusing on. And if we find that one provider maybe has great prices, but they can't deliver good services or good continuity within Tulare County, then that's just not going to work.
And I appreciate that. I just wanted to make sure that you know, I expressed my concern on that, and I have no objection to you guys continuing with it. I mean, I appreciate you guys willing to step up and do that. Thank you.
Yeah, and the number 2 item on network quality disruption, that was definitely made clear, and Tulare County representatives made that clear in our meeting that if that's not something that would work for both sides, it's just not going to work.
Okay. This is an action item, so if there's no more comments or questions, I'll entertain a motion. Okay, Supervisor McCary. Second by Supervisor Pacheco. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstain? All right, thank you. Our next item is to receive the consultant's report on carrier proposals.
In preparation for the subcommittee's meeting, which met on April 26th, we had gone back to all the carriers to ask them to update. Oh, let me preface this by saying this was in your agenda. It's listed as an action item. The action that you took on the previous item makes this really an information item and not an action item. So I want to note that correction there. So we went back to all the carriers to basically have them confirm what their bid is. Keep in mind, originally they bid for 2023 with a contract lasting through 24 and 25. The update, obviously, they're not bidding for 23 anymore, it's for 24 and 25. And we asked for an optional year for 26. So with that being said, the carriers provided confirmation of we asked for a lot of confirmations of a lot of different items. And they confirmed, in many cases, they improved upon their positions. So it was worth an exercise, definitely worth going through. There were, and keep in mind that from the April 6th to the April 26th, April 6th strategic meeting to the April 26th meeting is 20 days that we had to inform the carriers that we wanted the updated information. We had to then, which was due back to us on Friday the 21st at 5 p.m. And from there, we turned around, analyzed the information they gave us to the best of our abilities, and had the report ready Wednesday morning for the subcommittee to consider that afternoon. Due to that, it didn't leave us really, I had to make the determination that we don't have time to go back to the carriers for any clarifications based off of positions that they gave us. One of the carriers, Aetna, in the exercise we gave, every page was labeled confidential. And so you'll see in the report, there is a lot of redacted information. Since then, since they've seen the report, they've asked that that be unredacted. So we will move forward, and this report will be revised, showing the numbers in an unredacted format as well, too. In addition to that, at the time of the report, for one of the TPAs, Health Comp, which has access to multiple networks, including Anthem and Blue Shield, the network access fee was not provided, so it's noted in the report that it was separate. We have that, so there'll be an update there as well, too. And then we'll obviously work with the subcommittee if there's any other information they'd like to see us formulate or anything else that they'd like to do. So we have all the updated proposals. The information is here. If there's anything in particular about the report, it really just shows the costs and everything. And I would entertain any questions that anybody might have.
Okay, any questions for Borden? Yes.
Maybe you don't know the answer to this, but my wife is a school teacher, Anthem Insurance. They were all on hold. They had friends that were on hold through CMC. All of a sudden, they all got approved, and they're doing business with them. Do we have any idea? Because they're not an SJVIA. They're just this one big, they are a big group, but, I mean, was there just some did CMC enter contracts with Anthem on other levels? Do you know?
My understanding is, no, my understanding, we do have Anthem here today as well in the audience, but my understanding is they're still negotiating that contract with CMC. Now, I can't necessarily speak to the school district.
I understand that.
But we entered into a direct contract with CMC that we're having Anthem administer. So all those claims that were held through March 31st are now with Anthem, and they are paying those claims, and members have access to the CMC facilities and providers. I can tell you this, that best efforts were made on the part of CMC, of both counties, and of Anthem to make sure that procedures were being approved as they should be, and that we weren't getting the answer of, oh no, you're with SJVIA, there's no Anthem contract in place with you. There were some areas, and we've worked with everyone that's been, every person and every procedure that has come forth with us. CMC has notified my office, and we've handled it with Anthem as well too, on procedures that were not being approved because simply of a misunderstanding of providers. Re-education had to be done with the providers at CMC, that they understood that if, you know, an SJVI member has a certain prefix in their member card number, and that needed to be re-educated among the providers so that they're not rejected by people. So there's cleanup there that happened, but to the best of my knowledge, I think over the last maybe week and a half, I haven't received any information about people not being able to get services or decline because being told that they don't accept that coverage.
No, the point is when it was on hold, that was everybody, and it was not only us, SJVIA, it was other Anthem.
Yes,
But all of a sudden now, at least the impression is, and that's what, you know, because I don't have any inside information either to staff over there, is that now Anthem is being accepted at CMC, and somebody actually had surgery up there that was on hold. So my question is I'm curious, did Anthem come to an agreement with these other groups but not representing SJVIA? I'm just curious.
It wouldn't work that way. Anthem would contract direct with CMC, And so if they reached an agreement with CMC, that covers all of their clients that have that contract.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons we have the direct contract with CMC, because that agreement hasn't been reached.
Right, but my concern is, and maybe I'm beating a dead horse here, is if that was done, and I don't know, and I'm asking if you know, and if Anthem's here, maybe they can answer. If they were able to enter, CMC was able to enter into a contract with an Anthem provider, different, not us, why couldn't they do it with SJVIA with an Anthem provider?
Let me opine. So what may have happened is they may have been approved for surgery out of network. And so there would have been out-of-network fees paid. So that still can happen even though there's not a contract between Anthem and CMC, correct?
And, and there were, during those whole 3 months, there were still people going to CMC facilities, and that's why we have the hold, how that materialized. It's not just carryover from the previous year would have been paid under the old contract. But that's what the hold represents, is everybody who went, CMC basically said, we're not going to ask for payment yet because we don't have a contract.
They canceled everything for this person, so that's why it seemed they were impacted just like we were. I was just curious if we knew if something was done for one side but not for us. That's all I want to know. And I think Anthem's standing up. Maybe they can answer.
I'm not familiar with any of that. If you'd like, I can ask
Please.
Anthem.
Anthem's here to speak to it. Good morning, Mr. Makari. We do not have any other direct contracts with any other groups in the Fresno area. So SJVIA is the only customer at this time that has entered into a direct agreement with CMC.
So even though my card says Anthem on it from the school district, you're telling me it's a different Anthem?
No, it's the same Anthem. I'm saying we have a direct contract with CMC on behalf of SJVIA. All of our other customers in this geography continue to have CMC as a non-network provider at this time while we continue to negotiate.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, I do have one question, not of Anthem, thank you.
Okay,
That's fine, but for Borden, of the proposals that we received, have we ensured that everyone that submitted has an active contract or the ability to provide care in all jurisdictions? I know community medical centers have been the primary focus here, but you know, Adventist is a large provider here in Tulare County. You know, in Kings County, Adventist is a huge presence. So there's different areas where different providers tend to have a larger service that's being provided. And so I want to make sure that each of the insurance entities is in contract with all of the providers so that we are fully aware of what we're going down a path for.
Thank you. I appreciate that comment because that's an area that my report it didn't address. Okay. But the questions were asked. It was asked specifically for, we asked for the timing of contract renewals for CMC and for Adventist Health.
So can we make sure that we have that information in front of us? I found out I'm on another ad hoc committee with Supervisor Magsig and look forward to that. But I want to make sure that we have that information in front of us before we make any decisions because, again, we're two entities, two counties that are here together with different providers, different sources for our care within each. So
I can tell you that every carrier was diligent in responding to that. It was my oversight of not getting that information into this report.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Since you overslept, we put you on 6 other committees.
Hey, you know what? I just want to let you know, and actually, I'll even throw a little pitch out here too. I can't look to this end, but I'll look to this end because I have 3 senior citizen colleagues here. I went and presented a proclamation at Senior Day in the Park at Mooney Grove Park. And I want you all to know that there are resources available and there are cakes for a cakewalk, and Elvis will be performing later on today. So you senior citizens may be interested in that. I want to put that out there.
And HR, I believe that's elder abuse. So we'll move ahead. If nothing else, other questions for Borden, I will entertain a motion.
Just an information item.
Information, that's right. That's the next one that's an action. Thank you, Borden. Our next one is to receive and approve revised SJVIA mission and vision statements.
And
Lupe Garza, SJVIA Manager. Item 15 is receive and approve the revised SJVIA mission and vision statement. As previously mentioned, we met during the SJVIA strategic planning meeting in April and made some slight revisions to the mission and vision statement. So for the mission, the current statement was the mission of the SJVIA is to deliver quality health benefits to members at a sustainable level. The revised statement is the mission to deliver quality health benefits. The vision, the current vision is the vision of the SJVIA is to address basic and critical health needs while affecting long-term wellness of members. The revised vision is the vision to address basic and critical health needs while improving long-term wellness. We believe this meets more of what the SJVIA is about. So we're asking for approval to the revised vision and mission statement.
Okay, any questions, comments, suggestions otherwise? All right.
I helped to shape it, so I don't
Wow,
have any
you are,
questions.
that's.
I just want to point that
That's
out.
awesome. So is that a motion?
I'll make the motion, there you go.
All right, we have a second.
I'll second.
Magsig. It's M-A comes before M-I, so I just, yeah. All right, all those in favor? Aye? Opposed? Abstain? All right, motion passes. And our last is SJVIA Director questions, announcements, and activity reports. Do we have any questions, announcements, or activity reports? Wow, you got here just in time. You're just so helpful today, Pete. And the reason Pete came to the meeting was for this reason. We are now adjourned. Thank you, folks. Yeah, wait.
Sorry, I meant to jump in. I didn't know we were moving quickly past item 13 and 14. If we could I just make a comment on that item?
Can we do that? Council? Okay. Okay, so I'm going to reopen the meeting, and we have a comment. Go ahead.
Great, thank you very much. And just wanted to say I appreciate the opportunity to be able to present and understand the challenging process that you all have in front of you of making a decision. And I just wanted to provide a couple of clarifications. One, I think as you look to really look at the data and understand what it looks like in the future as you assess the proposals, we would formally request to get more detailed data for the RFP so we can provide that additional insight for you as part of our proposal. And that would really just be including detailed claims so we know each script based on your current utilization. And if we could get that, that would be really advantageous as we prepare for the finalist meeting and finalizing our proposal.
Quick question I have. So I thought that when you were provided scripts, when you responded to the RFP, that it was just as detailed as what every other entity, and obviously with, you know, with ImperiRx being the prescription provider now, they have full access. So am I hearing you correctly that the script information you got was only partial, so you couldn't provide a completely detailed response, and the only entity that had the full script information was ImperiRx?
That's correct.
Gordon, I got a problem with that. So can you clarify the record, or if that's the case, we've got a big problem on our hands?
Come on up, Gordon.
When the original proposal went out, we did two data dumps. And by data dump, I mean on the medical side, we gave them 2021 medical claims with tax ID, all the provider information, what it was used for, and the billed charge. We did not give them the paid claim because that's proprietary to Anthem. And from the medical side, everybody was able to do an evaluation of, had you been the carrier in place, and we even gave them a valuation date, We said, do it as of April 1st, 2022. So price all the claims that happened on the medical side as though they happened there. We did the same thing on the prescription drug side. Everybody received a complete file of all the data. There was no appeal by anybody at that time that they were missing data or anything like that. As a matter of fact, everybody was able to go through the process, including Aetna at that time, because in their response, they did give us the claim-by-claim information, as did everybody. And we recognize that their discounts, their arrangements on particular drugs are confidential. So we asked for a summary report of what the overall discounts were in a variety of different buckets, and we received that. So everybody received a full year's of claim data, or charge data, if you will, with all of it. And I think there was over 300,000 files, or 300,000 claims and so forth that they received data on. I think that's one of the reasons they had such a tough time getting information back to us, because these files were so huge. And so I completely disagree with the comment that was made by Aetna that they needed additional information to do a thorough evaluation. My response was, you have everything you have, and that's what you were to work on. If they're referring to updated information, that was a direction that we received out of our strategic planning meeting, is that we felt they had everything they needed to complete the exercise already, and we weren't going to give new claim feeds. That was, specifically, that was...
So did Imperi RX have information that CVS did not in quantifying information in their RFP?
Well, they would have known their own discounts already that were applied and so forth. But the file that they provided was sufficient for everybody to do an evaluation.
But that's not my question. Did Imperi RX have information that not just Aetna, but I'm talking about I think Aetna was the only other one that gave us a bid when it came to prescriptions. I want to make sure that when we issue RFPs, there's got to be a level playing field. And there always is a slight advantage to the incumbent unless there's a major issue. But if information for putting together pricing, if both entities don't have access to all the information, you can never get adequate pricing data.
They had all the information that was, they were not going to receive certain data.
But just answer yes or no. Did they have the same information? Okay, that's all I want to know.
As a matter of fact, Empirics had to fill out the same form that they did. It's not like we just said, oh, you got the information, just give us the summary. Everybody had to fill out the same form, and from that, we took the same information and confirmed the summaries.
So everybody had the same information given, and they had to put together the table? No one had access to information that others did not? That's all I needed clarification from you on.
And I will say this, that Aetna was the only one that asked for updated information, to the best of my recollection, on this last go-around. And the response was, no, that wouldn't be provided.
Madam Chair, just a quick follow-up question, not for Borden, but for Aetna. So we're all aware of the community medical center issue that's going on with Anthem. Can you specify of any entity or provider that you are out of contract with, if any, in this area? I know in Fresno, they've got their providers. In Tulare County, we have ours. So I just want you to kind of consider this whole region.
Sure, yeah, and I would ask Susan Voigt, who handles our medical portion, I'm focused on pharmacy, to come up.
I will speak to that. Thank you so much. Thank you, Susan Vogt, Aetna. We do have a contract with CMC. Our contract is renewable in August of 2023. So we'll be in the same position to go back and negotiate that Anthem was in this last year. And Adventist, we're working on our contract right now.
So are you in contract or out of contract with Adventist? Because Adventist is a primary provider, at least in my district.
Yeah, Adventist, we are in active negotiations. So most likely by the time we come back for the finalist meeting, I'll be able to let you know if we have a 3-year contract with them.
Okay, so as of now, we've got Anthem and CMC with their issues, and we have Aetna and Adventist with their issues.
Yes,
So,
because
just want to make sure that everybody, I want to make sure that we all know exactly who's on what playing field when we make our decision.
Of course, and when we come for the finalist meeting, we'll be able to hopefully tell you that we're in contract for 3 years. And I will say that, as hospital contracts come up, they're renewable, but every 3 years you have to renegotiate. And, we do that on behalf of our public entities here in Fresno County, and we try to get the best deal so we can give you guys the best deal on our discounts and all of that. So at the finalist meeting, I will have that. And I will say to Borden's point that I did ask for additional data. The data that we had was over a year old, and we made projections based on the old data that we had. Of course, the incumbent has the most updated data. We do not. As you can see today, they talked about their specialty drugs. We don't know the progression of that as well as they do. So just wanted to let you.
Yeah, and I can finish with that. I still actually disagree with Borden's statement. The claims file that was provided was summarized at the drug level. So we did not have individual script information. You'll see with the disruption report, there's only, I think, 43,000 different line items when you have over 100,000 scripts. So what we're looking for is that each of those drugs broken out by the date dispensed and the quantity dispensed for the medication.
Why is that important when it comes to pricing?
Well, when we're being asked to project based on number of scripts, that becomes significantly important. The pricing, we are taking additional risk, but we guaranteed the pricing regardless of having that information. But because the projections are also part of the analysis, in order to have the same baseline, we would need that detail on a script level.
Borden, is that accurate that they didn't have that level of detail?
So I would have to go back. The ask of Empirics was to provide it at the script level. And I think we just heard that it was 43,000 scripts that were shown. I will have to go back and look and ask if that was the full or if anything was held back. But I will tell you, whatever was in that proposal, those 43,000, that's what we asked everybody to evaluate on. And from the original proposal to what Empirics priced now, that didn't change. If you look at the report, it's basically unchanged as far as Empirics goes.
The reason I think some of this is important is I remember, again, a year ago, when we were looking at the discounts and CVS indicated they could do over $7 million.
Yeah.
And you said that's impossible. And so I think that number was kind of discounted by you. But like I shared with you then, and I'll share it with you now, if someone puts a discount in their proposal, you hold them to it. And and it's important for everyone to have that same information. So thank you.
In the report, we used the number, the $7 million number last year. We didn't, in my opinion, achieving that number is hard to understand when you look at the comparative rebates on a per script basis and the various different categories that they had, because they were very similar to everyone else's. So I think that's just one clarifying point that I'd like to make. But I will go back to Empirics and say, what did you give me? Because the ask was for 2021, complete scripts, obviously HIPAA protected, so names, all that kind of stuff is off. And that's about the only thing that's off of there, that and the actual paid claim amount. That's what was supposed to go out. And at that time, we didn't hear any objections from anybody last year about the data that they received. They all did it, they responded, and it wasn't an issue for Aetna last year. It's at this time that we're hearing that it's an issue.
I think, to your point, the only reason that there's a concern is because of the projections and then the questioning of the projections. We understand they are projections. There are assumptions made, but you need to be making them off the same baseline. If we don't have the individual script count, we're forced to make some additional assumptions based on book of business and so forth. But again, it also doesn't change the guarantees on the per script that we provided. So again, if we could have that information, we can be better predictors, which I think is what would be beneficial for you all as you do your analysis and compare the offers.
All right, thank-
How come you didn't bring that up before? He says there was nothing. I know you asked for this information.
Sure.
Why are we hearing about it here today when Gordon says he wasn't asked back then?
So after the second round, yes, it was asked to get the additional detail. And then we were asked to provide, as part of this round, even more projections. And so it was asked again.
But Mike.
We're okay without the,
But you didn't bring any of those concerns up to him that you didn't get.
we did back in May,
So
yes.
he's saying no and you're saying yes?
Yeah, and if we need to share emails, we certainly can.
Okay.
But it really came about in that second round because what we were putting forth was discounted as part of the results review.
Okay, thank you for your comments.
Yeah, one quick thing. I did ask Gordon, and he just said, you know, in his defense, he did say, no, you're not getting any more data. You have to use what you have. So we did. The only last concern I have is I asked Gordon yesterday, and I'd like him to answer this. In the board documents, it stated that because he redacted our information, we were unaware that it was redacted, and there was a little section there that said that because Aetna's information was redacted, he could not come to a conclusion between Impi RX and CVS Health. He has the information, so that's a little confusing to me, and I was just wondering if he could answer that. Sure.
Review all that with us during the interview process. I think it's important for you to bring that out when you do come in for the interview. Okay. So because we did review the emails that you were asking, and he did answer your question. Yeah, so I think that during the interview, when we all get together, it'll be a perfect opportunity for you to be able to address those issues.
Okay, yeah, I didn't see that email. He must have sent it this morning. Okay. Well,
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank our great illustrious chairwoman, Madam Shuckley, for adjourning this meeting about, I don't know, 25 minutes ago, and the meeting continued for another 25 minutes.
I reopened it for the public.
That's what you get when you don't include public comment at the start.
And maybe it would have been better if you stayed at the park. So, with that, we will now adjourn the meeting. Don't get into a war of words with me.